Hello and welcome back to Storytelling on the Plains. I'm your host Irene and I am flying solo this week. So we're just going to pick up where we left off last week on Storytelling on the Plains, where we talked about the Hudson-Meng Bison Bone Bed, and we ended with a quick mention of the Bison Trail, which connects Hudson-Meng's Visitor Center to Toadstool Geologic Park. That's where we're going to start today, and it's a great entry point on our way to Toadstool. Before we get started, I want to mention that the Bison Trail is 3 miles each way. That is technically correct, but no one is going to walk to Toadstool, go, oh look, that's Toadstool, turn around and come back. You're going to explore. For me, my entire round trip that day from Hudson-Meng to Toadstool and back was 8.77 miles. So plan yourself about 9 miles if you're going to go and explore Toadstool. And I didn't even explore everything. I mention this so that if you're ever going to find yourself out there, you take plenty of water and snacks and be prepared. I was mostly prepared. I didn't have enough water, but I had enough snacks, and I needed snacks about 1.25 miles from the end. I'm diabetic, and my blood sugars were dropping. So I was glad I had a couple of, I was going to say trail mixes, granola bars. It's a fruit and nut mix. And it was enough to boost my numbers up and make it so that I was okay for the last 1.25 miles. We didn't do everything. We hit all the main trails when we were there, because I was going with a friend of mine who was writing a magazine about great trails out here in western Nebraska, and he asked me if I wanted to go. So of course I said yes. So just keep in mind, everything you find online is going to say it's about 6 miles round trip. That is accurate, but if you actually want to see things, you're not just going to go, oh, okay, we made it to Toadstool, let's turn around and go back. You're going to go in and see stuff, so just plan accordingly. So from Hudson-Meng, the Bison Trail is a gentle walk across the prairie and generally slopes downward, which means it's uphill all the way back. You don't really notice it too much coming back that it's uphill. There's a couple of spots where you go down into some gullies and empty riverbeds now, so you know you're going down and coming back up, but you don't generally notice the upward slope. At least I didn't. But it is there, and the dips into the ravines were carved out over time by water. And when I went in March, there wasn't really a lot of water anywhere. There was some. We did cross a little creek, but I mean, literally you can just jump over it if I remember correctly. So you don't really have to worry too much about getting wet, unless you purposely go and jump in the water. The neat thing about the trail is that it includes a hike through prairie and the beginnings of the Badlands, as well as a small bit of the Pine Ridge. It all kind of coalesces here. It's also so beautiful that USA Today named it one of the top 10 memorable spring hikes in America in 2015. And I think it's a memorable hike no matter what year you go and you take it. It's absolutely beautiful and gorgeous, and it's neat that 3 different environments kind of coalesce here and you can see them. Northwest Nebraska really is the beginnings of the Badlands, but what people think of as the Badlands in South Dakota, it is the Badlands, but that's like the big expanded bits. It kind of starts right out here in Northwest Nebraska. So it's neat to see how it starts. And if you ever look at Google Earth or anything similar, you can kind of see how that starts and how it grows, and there's more and more and more and more as you get up into South Dakota. So when you start your hike here on the Bison Trail, look for small white flags about 6 inches high on thin metal sticks to get started. It's not really hard to find. The beginning of the trail is very well marked, and it's easy to get going. You'll follow those metal sticks for about half a mile through the grass, and you'll know you're headed in the right direction because you'll eventually start to see large brown wooden poles painted yellow on top to mark the direction you need to go. Now, sometimes I thought the yellow painted bits were white, and my eyesight kind of sucks, and in that sense, from a distance, I could see the poles. They just looked white from a distance, and then when you got up close, they were yellow. But you'll be able to spot them. You're out there on the prairie. It's pretty easy to spot where they're at for the most part. A couple of times we had to stop and look, and we started scanning. And when I was there with my friend Steve, I would pick up my camera and look through the telephoto lens. Yep, that's it over there. That's where we're going. So just have some good eyesight. And even if you had just, those cheap $20, $25 binoculars, they're lightweight. They don't really cost anything, but take a little pair of those with you, and you'll be able to see those posts, and you won't get lost. We didn't get lost going there or coming back. So they always mark what direction you need to go. So just head toward the next wooden pole, and you can see the next wooden pole from the wooden pole that you're at. You won't really have too many problems there. And if you do, just stop and look around for two reasons. One, look around, get your bearings. Where's the next pole? And in what general direction is Toadstool? And then secondly, it's just absolutely beautiful and gorgeous. So stop and look around. Don't just make it a hike of, I need to get to the next pole, to the next pole, to the next pole, to Toadstool. Just enjoy it because it is absolutely gorgeous out there. There are some parts of the Bison Trail which are steep when you come out of a ravine, but you're quickly rewarded with spectacular views. You also have the potential to see a variety of birds, including woodpeckers and lots of animal tracks. I know I heard woodpeckers, but I didn't see any. I don't think we really saw any, large animals either. They are out there. We just didn't see them, and it was March, so we didn't have to worry about snakes. And for me, I when I say the coming out of the ravines, they were steep, please keep in mind that I am only 5'4", so what is steep to me is not going to be steep to my husband, who's 5'9", and to my friend, who's 5'11". It probably was no big deal for them to walk back up out of those ravines. A couple of times it was a little difficult for me just because I'm short. So just keep that in mind. It's not really a difficult hike at all. Even the steep bits, it's just, okay, I climbed out of the ravine, I need a minute or two to catch my breath. And I also weigh about 55 pounds less than when I went and hiked up there. So they may not be steep to me today because I'm not pulling as much weight to get back up out of the ravine. When the first visitors came through here in the late 1800s, they weren't looking so much for fossils. They just stared at these giant clay formations that make up Toadstool and felt like the area looked like giant toadstools. That's how it got named. It's an apt description, and the name stuck. And you can still see where there are still formations being made today. And when you look at them, they do look like they're little toadstools made out of sand. And, one person says it, oh, yeah, I see that. And then they tell someone, they tell someone, they tell someone, and the name sticks. So Toadstool. Near the edge of Toadstool on the Bison Trail, you'll start walking in a stream bed. So after you walk across the prairie, go down in a couple of ravines and come back up, you'll walk across what looks like Badlands. It's the beginnings of Toadstool and the Badlands in general. But when you get right at the edge of Toadstool on the Bison Trail, you start walking in a stream bed, and it is definitely a V. So you kind of have to walk one foot in front of another. It's very difficult to walk the way you normally walk because your feet are going to be slanted. I tried that a little bit coming back out, and it doesn't last long because your ankles start to hurt. And I'll get to why you don't want to do that when we get back out of Toadstool. When I went in, it was still frozen, but on the way back, it was beginning to thaw. So I tried walking on the sides. I had to clench my toes in my shoes to keep them on because the soil is so gooey. It feels like wet cement, and if I didn't clench my toes, my feet were coming out of my shoes. Now, I went hiking. At the time, I was wearing Merrell's Moab 2s, I believe. I'm wearing the 3s now, and I know the 4s are out, and they're just regular, like, walking shoes. They're not hiking shoes. They don't come up above my ankles. My husband and my friend had proper hiking boots on. They didn't have that issue. They said they could feel their feet or feel the bottom of their boots sticking, but because their boots all went well above their ankles, they didn't have any problems lifting their feet and getting back out. So the shoes were appropriate for the hike, but not for that little section. So just keep that in mind. You might have to clench your toes a little bit to help pull your shoes up while you're walking back out. Still totally worth it. When I've been out there, not a lot of people seem to venture into the stream bed section of Toadstool. At least we didn't really see any footprints when we were there, and it could have just been we went in March and maybe nobody had been during the winter, so whatever fresh footprints were there were gone, and we just happened to be the first ones of the spring. I don't know. But I do know people hike it. It's just not very common. Not a lot of people want to do an almost 9-mile hike. And you need to go early in the morning, even if you're going in March. It does get hot out there. There's not really any cover from the sun, so you want to go early before it gets too hot. Once we got into the stream bed section of Toadstool, there were about a half a dozen people or so milling about there. I don't know how many people actually come out into that whole flat section. You know, the closer we got to the marked trails in Toadstool, the more people we saw, but the farther out we got, the fewer people we saw. And I think most people just go to Toadstool, park in the parking lot, and then come in that way and hike around and mainly stay on the marked trails. It's not that where we're at is unmarked and you're not allowed to be. It's just people, I think people honestly think it's not marked, so we're not allowed out there. But you are, as long as you're respectful. Everyone we saw out there was respectful. They were enjoying it. I remember there was a couple out there with their dog, and the dog was just having a blast running around. So I think it's just human nature. Here's a marked trail, here's a marked trail. That's what they do, and then they go back. Just because most people think if it's not marked, then you probably shouldn't be there. But it is okay to be there. You're allowed to hike all around there. You know, just be mindful of where you're at and that land doesn't belong to you, so don't be a jerk. it's really a shame because the bit with the empty riverbed or stream bed is just as rewarding, in my opinion, to the more famous bits that people take pictures of. And I quite liked it. I mean, I liked everything about it. So plan extra time. Don't just look at the trails and they're this long. Plan some time to wander and to look at things because it's worth it. It's very, very cool. It's a completely different landscape than what you're used to, and there's a lot of neat history to it, which I'm going to get to here in a few minutes. So here you are with the freedom to wander around on the many trails. Toadstool Geologic Park is well known for its almost otherworldly rock formations as well as its fossils. But don't steal the fossils. They are protected and it is illegal for you to take them. But let the authorities know where they're at. You know, take a picture of it, take a picture of the general location where you're at so they can come out and do research. If you steal all the fossils, then we're missing part of the geological record, and that's your fault that we're missing a piece of history that maybe you found the thing that will be a link that we've been looking for, but you stole it because you just wanted to take it. Just don't take it. Take pictures of it, that's cool, and then just leave it where it's at. Let the authorities know, hey, I found this fossil. The day that I was there was a gentleman out there looking for turtle fossils, and he taught my friend Steve how to look for fossils and identify them, and it ended up being pretty cool because my friend Steve was like, damn it, now I can't not see things. I'm seeing fossils everywhere. Just be mindful. Take a picture. You don't need to take that home and put it on your shelf. And I think most people that go out there aren't jerks. At least I like to hope that they're not. Fossils of early three-toed horses, early camels, brontotheres, entelodonts, and hyenodons have been found here. They're very important to the geological record because some of them have been found in other parts of western Nebraska. So it's a way of paleontologists learning basically their habitat. How big was it? Where were they all at? And if you take all the fossils of, say, early camels, then paleontologists are going to be like, well, how come we find them here, 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 and here, but there's this big gap where they're not? And then paleontologists will start trying to figure out why that mammal avoided that area, when in reality, people just stole the fossils. So just don't. And as someone with a bachelor's degree in anthropology who had at one time thought about being a paleontologist or a cultural anthropologist, people who steal fossils just really, really aggravate me. And if you want to hear me go on a curse word-laden tirade, just tell me you think it's cool to do such a thing. So don't take fossils. And let me explain in a little bit more detail why. First, you aren't trained to know what is and isn't important. You're not trained to know, oh, we have found 60,000 of those fossils, so it's okay for you to take that. No, you don't know. You're not trained in what is and isn't important, so just leave it. Second, you might accidentally destroy it or move it to a different location, which affects research. Speaking of which, it's 2026, and as I am recording, there were a bunch of researchers from 4 different institutions at Toadstool, I believe it was in June, up there doing research, and let me quote more reasons why you need to leave this stuff alone. And I'm going to be quoting from an article that was on KNEB Radio's website. Jason Moore from the University of New Mexico explained that the multi-year, multi-institution project has taken researchers to the Petrified Forest National Park in Arizona, northwest Paraguay, and northwest Nebraska to better understand why fossils are deposited where they are and the ecosystems that create them. They've spent 4 years documenting the death of modern animals in Paraguay and studying their sedimentation process that eventually will turn the carcasses into fossils. Now they are working to test the patterns they have seen in Paraguay against existing rock records in Arizona and Nebraska. We've built up a really nice collection of fossils from in and around Toadstool Park, he said. The 2026 dig is focused on interpreting the fossils they locate with the knowledge they've gained and models created through the studies in Paraguay. So if you go in messing around with stuff, you could actually be destroying vital research that these folks have already got 4 years invested in. I think it's also cool that what they have seen in Paraguay is reappearing in the rocks in Toadstool. A lot of these microfossils that they're looking at aren't studied at all. So it's very cool that these group of folks are doing this. Those that are, so these microfossils that are being studied are understudied. So just leave it all alone, because this stuff takes a lot of funding, a lot of patience, a lot of coordination, and there's 4 different institutions working on this. They've already been working on it for 4 years, and they plan to be up at Toadstool, I believe, the next 2 or 3 summers. So just by looking at something, taking a picture of it, and leaving it, you're helping study and research. So just don't. Just say, hey, look at this cool thing I saw, and leave it. Among the finds in the first week of the dig were an ancient beaver skeleton, a lizard vertebrae, and a possible frog fossil. A rare bird fossil was also found, and several freshwater fish fossils were discovered exactly where Moore expected them to be based on the Paraguay modeling. While the dig focused on microfossils, the researchers were excited by any discovery, and one student was particularly thrilled to find a rhino jaw. So, I mean, it's cool. I've been on a couple of archaeological digs in the summer of 1989, and it was very cool no matter what we found. Holy crap, look what we found. It didn't matter what it was. We found very cool things, and you're helping to fill in gaps. You're helping to expand the greater picture. You're helping to better understand at Toadstool what mammals lived here, why they were there, and how abundant they were as well. So these folks will be back next year, and I hope they're able to find more. And I think they will, because Toadstool has a sedimentary basin, which is where all the action happens. But let's get back to more of the history of this awesome place so you can understand why the action is happening now. Toadstool's history begins around 30 million years ago. It was the result of a river that flowed into the area at the time. Part of Toadstool comes from the volcanic ash, which floated over from the west coast and was deposited here millions of years ago. Weathering from wind and water created its current appearance. So basically, volcanic ash comes over more than once to blanket the area with ash. Then water from rain and snow dissolved the ash and seeped into the cracks in the natural clay. Once the cracks break into pieces, you get hardened minerals and bone fragments being exposed. The picturesque picturesque reddish layers in the rock were deposited during former wet seasons, while the equally beautiful greenish layers were deposited during the dry season. So think of that when you go to Toadstool, regardless of whether you come in on the Bison Trail or you drive there in a car in the parking lot. And look around at the rock and think about the different colored layers. If you head back 30 million years ago, you're going to find animals like Mesohippus and Subhydrocodon. If you can't remember names like that, just remember, in general terms, very, very, very general terms, they were miniature horses, humpless camels, gigantic tortoises, pigs, and early rhinoceroses. They didn't quite look like what we have today, but they were here and they resembled all of those similar mammals today. A lot of people refer to them as bizarre, but all I see is change over time and different looking animals to today. It's called evolution. Change happens over time. I know that's an overly broad and simple definition, but some of these animals died out. Some of them just changed and adapted as the climate changed and adapted. And again, before anybody jumps on that, the climate change we are seeing today is happening way, way faster than what these guys would be changing and adapting to. What they're dealing with is going to be slow changes. We're seeing fast changes over the course of a century. These guys are seeing changes over millions of years, so it's easier to adapt a little bit. Their bones and their tracks are preserved at Toadstool, and they are all part of the evidence we have of the ancient river valley that was once here. Here's something you might be able to understand as well. The animals also had to deal with it being hot and muggy outside, only they didn't have the comforts of air conditioning for a little bit of respite in the day. As I'm recording this podcast right now, I'm sitting in my basement, and it's a nice cool 72 degrees down here, and I don't have the AC on yet. I'm not quite sure what the temperature is outside, but today it's supposed to be up in the high 80s. But we've just had a week or so of 97 to 105 degree weather, and when those guys were dealing with it, 30 million years ago, they don't have a house with air conditioning they can go into to chill out in. So the riverbed that runs through Toadstool was shallow and broad. So the animals are going to come to the water. It's stinking hot outside. What do you want when it's hot outside? You want a drink. So they're probably not going to stray too far during the hot days from the waterbeds because they want something to drink. So everything is eroded and exposed today, and you get these wonderful rock formations that have exposed the mammals from long ago. And if you just look down at any part of Toadstool when you're walking around, you'll see the evidence. It's very easy to see the wind and water erosion and how that exposes whatever mammals were here that died and were buried, but they're exposed now. So the dark, jagged gravel that you see at Toadstool is a coarse mixture of silicon dioxide, which is the same compound as glass, and fossil bone fragments. On one of the large rocks there, you can see the tracks of a four-legged animal preserved in it. If you wonder how well, remember this area is clay and gets all muddy and gooey when it's wet. The animal walks along, leaves tracks behind, the clay hardens to stone, and there you go. Also, this is an extremely simplified explanation of how you get the fossil footprints in the rock. this process doesn't happen in seconds, but that's the general gist of it. And when you go to Toadstool, you could even look it up before you go. There's enough information online. You can look for the area where you could see those tracks preserved in the rock. I forget where they're at now. I can see the area. I'm just forgetting what part of the park that they're at. But there is one large stone at Toadstool where the tracks are really easy to see. And if you look closely, you can see where there were only 2 toes on 1 foot. You compare it to some fossils, and you'll find the tracks are consistent with the size and shape of entelodonts or giant pigs. Again, very oversimplified, but still very dang cool. We have the fossils of entelodonts, and we got some footprints, and we're able to match it up that this is what it was. Again, super basic. It's way more involved in that, but to go through the process of how they identified the footprints would be an entire podcast on itself, and I'm not doing a paleontology podcast. I'm doing a podcast about the history of all the cool things that are out here in western Nebraska, and this is something that I think is super cool, and you can actually go out and see. So you can go and say, hey, this is cool too. Maybe you'll think it's super cool and you'll nerd out like I did. So walking around Toadstool, you'll find other neat things like how rushing water cut away the underside of a cliff. And it's a very, very large cliff, and I've sat on that cliff many times, and I worry about falling off every time. When the water undercuts the land like this, it will eventually cause the left behind and overhead mass to break off. And so I have had one picture of me sitting on this edge. The picture was taken as soon as my husband said, okay, I got my butt up and moved, because I was worried it was going to break off. And it's a good 100 foot straight down. And if you're already sitting, it's going to cause some damage. So I will never have another picture of me taken there. I'm not going to do it. I already got one. I don't care if I weighed, way more than I do now. Skinny me doesn't need a picture there. Well, I'm good. But a lot of people do take pictures there. There are many pictures online of folks sitting on that big undercut area. And it just kind of terrifies me that when I go sit there again, that's going to be the time it decides to fall off, and then I'm screwed. When that mass will break off, because little bits break off all the time, and it might just be millimeters, but at some point it might be a big chunk. It can cause the path of streams to divert elsewhere, and there's evidence that has happened many times up there at Toadstool, and it's happened other places as well. So back when all these mammals were running around, seasonal floods helped the mud and the silt preserve everything we have today. And that includes, animals that just maybe die of old age, or they got sick and died, or they were killed and something ate them, and then the skeletons left alone. The mud and the silt, it's all going to preserve what's left, and you're eventually fossilize, and you're going to get the fossils that we have found today. Again, way overgeneralizing, but you get the point. In case you don't think that is still happening today, Toadstool is eroding at about 1 inch per year. So technically, the Toadstool I hiked around in 2016 has eroded about 10 inches in that time. So it might look the same to me, but it technically is not. Also, remember I mentioned the colors earlier? Well, they help with identifying rock layers and faults in the area. Toadstool has a major fault zone. You can find it by looking west and finding the horizontal band of rocks on the cliff face. Scientists have estimated this happened 8 to 2 million years ago. And it's very easy to see. It's not even something I have to describe, and you have to squint to see it. Just look to the west, and you'll see the horizontal band of rocks on the cliff face. They also help you with rock identification. The light-colored clay stone and a darker sandstone can be seen here too. Clay stone is softer than sandstone. The sandstone was formed as a sandbar in the river that flowed here 30 million years ago. So if you go into the riverbed, just imagine, it'd be well over my head. I'm 5'4", and there are parts where I'm standing in the riverbed and the top is like 10 feet high. So it varied, just like most rivers. The depth varies depending on where it was at. But just think about that. The sandstone that's there now was formed as a sandbar in that river that was there 30 million years ago. We're also still seeing creation of new toadstools taking shape, so the erosion never ends. It continues to shape our present. If you look south from the campground at Toadstool, the campground and the parking lot, it's all one big area. If you look south, you can see the little toadstools that are being formed. It's in 100 years, some of what I see now isn't going to be there, and some bits that aren't formed yet will be fully formed. They're probably forming now. I'm just not paying attention to it because they're not fully formed toadstools yet. But the process does continue on. So Toadstool is also home to the longest trackway of prehistoric mammals in North America from 30 million years ago. It extends out just shy of 3/4 of a mile. And I want to quote from the booklet you can pick up for free at the site when you go visit. Also, they have a little guest book. Be sure to sign the guest book because it helps them know how many people are out there and how much people enjoy the place. Research on the trackway indicates the tracks paralleling the stream bed belong to two species of rhinoceroses that used the stream as a path. A smaller rhinoceros crossed the stream after the larger rhinoceros had passed. Splash marks on the rocks indicate the rhinoceros sped away from walking to running through sloppy mud heading downstream. You can also see things in this if you look at just regular footprints of, say, a human or animal, whatever. You can see where they walk and where they start running. You can see the change in the prints that are there. So it's obvious that they started running through this mud and silt. And because there's water there too, you get the splash marks, which is kind of neat. And it helps that they're able to identify a smaller rhino and a bigger one, and that they're from two different species. Again, science is cool, folks. Go out and look at it, and then learn all about it, because I'm not going to sit here and give you a history lesson on how they can identify this stuff. I spent 4 years in school learning that, so I can't sum it up in 20 seconds. The National Park Service describes it as The National Park Service describes it as it reveals an ancient pursuit. Hungry entelodonts chasing two species of rhinoceros down a stream channel. You can see the entelodonts, or again, giant wild hogs, here as well. The spot to see their tracks requires a bit of scrambling. up some rocks. And it's not for the faint of heart, but early in the morning or later in the day, you can use the sun as an aid to see the shadows that create the contrasts on the land, and the tracks come to life. When the sun is beaten straight down on it, it's very hard to see the tracks, but you can see them. You can also see the webbed tracks left by prehistoric ducks if you know what you're looking for. I have not seen those tracks. I've been to the area where they're at, I think, and I couldn't see it, but I think I was there at the wrong time of day, and I just need to go back and be a little more diligent and not rushed. If I went up there by myself or with my husband, we would probably stand there till we could figure it out and see it. So just know who you're going with and take your time, because you might see it right away. It might take you a little bit, kind of like those stupid colored circle things where they're like, what number is hidden in here? Those aren't always obvious to me. Sometimes, depending on the colors they use, sometimes it's a little harder for me to pull out. And I'm not colorblind. I don't have any color deficiencies. They're just a little hard for me to find. So I think I was in the right spot to see the webbed tracks. I just wasn't getting it. And, could be I was tired, could be I wasn't even in the right place. So that's another trip for me to go up there just to check it out and see. Once this part of Nebraska became more arid, all those prehistoric forests thinned out and we got savannas and grasslands. Some of the animals here adapted while some went extinct. Ancestors to cats, dogs. The dogs are the Hesperocyon. I really hope I pronounced that correctly. Camels, deers, and horses survived. Everything else pretty much died out. So I know I've been using the 30 million years ago mark, but I want to make sure that folks know Toadstool includes the time period from 38 to 24 million years ago. I'm just using 30 because that's roughly in the middle. And let me explain why a little bit more. Geologists consider it the type section for the White River group, meaning that all other similar age deposits in North America are compared to the geologic standard designated at Toadstool. It is also the standard for animal fossils of that age, the Eocene and the Oligocene epochs, about 30 million years ago. So there's a reason why I'm sticking with 30 million. It's more than just, it's the middle between 38 and 24. We actually date stuff based on stuff at Toadstool. It's become the standard. Which again, don't go taking the fossils, because now you can even understand more the significance of what we find up at Toadstool. It is an absolute blast to go up there hiking around for the day and enjoy your day. But it also has massive geological and paleontological significance. And I think that's all pretty freaking cool. Maybe it's just me. Maybe you'll go up there and have a look and see how absolutely cool it is. Even if you don't fully understand the science, stand up there at Toadstool and you'll get a massive appreciation for the land, for how it was formed, for the mammals that were there, and for how Toadstool fits into the world's geological record. While I went to Toadstool through the Bison Trail at the beginning of the episode, I want to note that you can reach all three trails at Toadstool from the trailhead near the parking lot, which is how everyone usually starts. This is my guess, but I would say 90 to 95% of the people that hike around Toadstool start from the parking lot. Like 5% or so start at Hudson Mang and hike in, hike around, and then hike back out. Because it's a long hike. And a lot of people don't want to hike 8 miles in a day. So that's fine. But just know that you can reach all of the trailheads there at all the trails at Toadstool from the trailhead there near the parking lot. There is a 1-minute interpretive loop trail within the park. That's what most people take. And it does cover a lot of ground, and you're going up and down and around, and, it's still fun. If that's all you do is that 1 mile interpretive loop, that's great. You get a great overview of what Toadstool is. I'm happy for anybody that goes up to Toadstool to check it out. The 1 mile interpretive loop is the one that most people do, and it's usually all they do. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm just happy they went up there to see it and explore and enjoy it and maybe come back again one day. I've already discussed the Bison Trail, which takes you from Toadstool to Hudson-Meng and back, or vice versa, however you want to start. These are the two that are the most well-known, but there is a third trail, and I don't know anyone personally who has hiked it. I know several people who know of it, they just haven't been on it. And this is the Great Plains Trail, which was developed by the Great Plains Trail Alliance. And I want to quote from Discover Northwest Nebraska about the Great Plains Trail. A 5-mile loop begins at the campground and proceeds on the graveled section of the interpretive trail for a short distance before heading north through the Badlands and grasslands on the Great Plains Trail. After 1.5 miles on the Great Plains Trail, after 1.5 miles, the Great Plains Trail intersects with the 918 road. Follow the signs to return to the Bison Trail and Toadstool Campground. The loop can be done in reverse, going the other direction on the interpretive trail as you leave the campground. Finally, if you drive up to Toadstool rather than hiking in, you will be greeted with a reconstructed sod house. The U.S. Forest Service constructed the sod house in 1984 near the site of a former soddy, which was built in 1929. It lets you see the grasslands. I can't read from one line to the next. It lets you see how the early homesteaders built their homes on the grasslands and how they only used local material. The original was only lived in briefly, and there are no remains of it, but they wanted to reconstruct something for folks to see. And if you go more than once, hike to Hudson-Meng and back, and then the next time go and take the Great Plains Trail. The Great Plains Trail Alliance goes through a good chunk of the Great Plains. I want to say, and I would have to go back and check it, but I believe it goes all the way down to Mexico and up to the Canadian border. It covers the Great Plains, and that's their goal, is for you to be able to walk the entire thing, kind of like people who walk the entire Appalachian Trail. It will take you months to years to do it, but they all interconnect with each other. And when I was looking up the Great Plains Trail, I got as far down into south of Gearing before I was like, hey, I got to go do something else, and I'm not writing about the Great Plains Trail. But this little trail is a 5-mile loop, and it's called the Great Plains Trail, and it intersects with the overall Great Plains Trail, so you will just walk like 5 miles on the thousands of miles long trail. I haven't done that one yet, but I'm hoping to at some point in time. So while Toadstool is a great hike around, if you have small children, I encourage y'all to watch them carefully. If you have pets, please, please, please keep them on a leash. There are parts where you can fall and be seriously injured. And if you're not watching a little kid or your pet, they could be seriously injured. my brain automatically goes, oh no, they're going to fall and die, and then you don't have your dog anymore. I've never seen an accident there. I've never even seen anybody slip. Everybody has been always cautious and careful, and even on that cliff that's been eroded back and out and will one day fall, when people walk across the top of it, everyone just, it doesn't matter how fast they're going, they just stop. And then everybody carefully passes each other. So it's an innate instinct to just stop and be careful and look after everybody. And where's the dog at, so I don't accidentally trip over the dog, or the dog trips over me, or something bad happens. But I just want to throw that out there so that when you're there, just be mindful of where you're at and what's going on. Because on top of the fact that if you fell and got seriously hurt, cell service is very spotty out there, and it's a long way back to Crawford. It's 25, 30 miles to Crawford to even let anybody know that you need help. So please, just go out there, enjoy your day, have fun. There's no reason to fear anything as long as you take the normal and necessary precautions. Just go out and hike, enjoy the day out, enjoy being able to hike on history and hike in and around history and have a great time. So that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed learning about Toadstool. I love that place. I wish it was a little closer to me so that I could go out and hike it more often. It is a couple of hours north of Scottsbluff, so it does take some planning to get out there and get up there, but it is absolutely worth it. I'm hoping to make another trip in the fall of 2026. One, it's too hot right now during the summer of 2026 for me to consider it, and I'm not sure. I don't think there's any snakes at Toadstool, but I, in general, try not to do too many hikes in the summer because I am susceptible to heat stroke as well. And if I am going out hiking somewhere, I want to be somewhere where my phone's going to work and I can call for help if I need help. And Toadstool is not one of those places. So I tend to hike out in those kind of places in the fall, winter, and early spring, so that I don't have to worry about overheating. If you don't have those issues, go up during the summer. I know tons and tons of people do. Hopefully you enjoyed that and learned something new about Toadstool. And if you did, please find some time to go up there and enjoy the day. Leave at 7 in the morning, be up there at 9:30, hike around for a couple of hours, and then come back home. It'll be a whole day trip, but it'll be worth it. And you'll enjoy it, and then maybe you'll thank me. But next week, we got a few other things coming up, and I almost spoiled it, but I don't want to spoil next week's episode. Come back next week, and you'll learn what I'm going to be talking about. For now, I'm Irene, and this is Storytelling on the Plains.